Hello and welcome to a live That Christian panel on Deprogrammed. I'm one of your hosts, Keri. I'm here with two of my co-panelists, Michelle from Force of Light Entertainment, looking lovely as always. How are you?
Aw, good to be here. I always enjoy these panels.
I have fun. I have fun hanging out. I got to see you already once this week
I
on
know.
Midnight's Edge.
So how deep now are you into the Blake Lively thing?
Oh my gosh. Look, Brahma, I didn't even care about this celebrity topic. And now I deeply care.
Deeply into it.
Well, because they show me some very upsetting things.
It
Did you
is
see?
upsetting.
Did you guys look at Ryan Reynolds at the Saturday Night Live thing?
Yes. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. It was so annoying.
I'm doing great. Why? What have you heard?
You know, not to go down this rabbit trail, but I said it in the toxic femme chat. Like the more I think about it, like the more like it really makes me mad. Because basically the bottom line of the situation is you had two very rich and powerful people who thought they could just easily bury this kind of no-name, not super wealthy guy, and they would bury him in legal fees. He wouldn't be able to defend himself. The truth would never come out, and they would come out smelling like roses. Little did they know, little Justin was backed by a billionaire. It was like, no.
Wow.
And has receipts.
Yep, and has the receipts.
Well, Michelle hooked me on this topic, and it involves there's an element of evil in this whole story, which always fascinates me. So yeah, now thanks a lot, Michelle. That's all. I'll leave it at that.
We're gonna get Brahma into it next.
Oh, with the number of shows that I am on, I'm already into it anyways.
Like I know about it. And welcome Brahmabull from the Bullpen, the political show every Sunday. What's going on with you, sir?
Oh, just looking about as cold as you are.
It's freezing, you guys. I was telling our esteemed panelists before the show, I almost canceled because I'm in Texas and it's cold here, and I can't tolerate the cold like Brahma does. He's used to it. It's probably 10 degrees where he's sitting right now. Look at him.
It's about 18. It's fine. The space heater's 18. Over there.
Just
got the line jacket.
You're used to
everything's fine.
And you know what? It's 40 degrees in the lower part here right now, and I'm like, this is how I am because I can't take it.
Oh my god!
I spend most of the day not feeling my feet though. So.
Oh my gosh! You remind me of before we start. I should tell you a funny anecdote. I hope it's funny. There's this guy from Switzerland that my husband knows from the music world, and he and his wife own this really beautiful piece of property with cabins and stuff you can rent, and my husband plays music out there sometimes, and we stayed out there, and they are from Switzerland. They built these Swiss cabins with little, they brought in doors and stuff from Switzerland. It's really cool. Anyway, they have these cats and they live outside, and they live outside all year. And one night we stayed there last year when it was freezing, and one of these cats came by and looked so sad. I couldn't help it. I was like, come in, farm cat, come into our cabin. He stayed with us overnight because I couldn't stand it. And I was saying to my husband, like, they just leave the cats outside and the cats are fine? And he was like, yeah, probably. If you asked him about it, he'd probably say, this cat is from Switzerland. This cat, he sunbathes on the ice cube. Like, I can't do the accent, but he was like, this cat likes to wear bikini. And that was his running joke. Anyway, that's what you look like, Brahma. You look like the cat who sunbathes on an ice cube.
Yeah.
Oh man. Okay. Look at KB. 13 degrees.
Oh man.
Okay, so we are live. Andrew's asking, are we live? We're live. And we're going to talk about tonight. There were some fun clips that went around. I say fun because they were interesting. You can learn things from them. These clips that went around of Michael Knowles, who's a conservative commentator from the Daily Wire. He went on this channel, Jubilee, to debate some trans rights activists. And it was the program. I've been on Jubilee once before, and it was different. It was the kind where they bring in different, maybe 6 people on each side of an issue, and they have you all talk. This is the new format they're doing, where it seems where they bring in one person like Michael Knowles, and then they have them debate 50 people at once. So it's if you're a master at it.
25 on 1, I think.
Something like that.
I mean, you still debate 1-on-1, but there's 20 people from a pool to
Versus
draw
you.
from that are going against you.
Yeah.
It's amazing. I could never do this. I think only people who are very skilled in debate, I think it would drive me. I don't know if I could do it. Anyway, did you guys see these clips beforehand? Some of the clips of him talking to the trans rights folks?
I watched some of the episode and then I suggested that we do it. So then I stopped watching it.
Yeah, I haven't watched it. I've seen some of I saw that he went on there, but I've not watched it.
Okay, well, let's watch a couple of clips. Now, this is one that Chloe Cole shared. Chloe Cole, of course, is a famous detransitioner, one of the many people who transitioned when she was a child and had permanent surgical alterations done. They removed her breasts before she was an adult, and who now regrets it and is suing the medical establishment for doing this to her when she was a kid, when she couldn't consent. Anyway, Chloe Cole shared this clip because he mentions her in this one. But this is one of the first clips.
Pause before you start, just so I have more info on her. If they did it when she was a kid, and this kind of has really gone ramped up recently, how long ago was this that they did her surgery?
Chloe Cole's?
Yeah.
I believe she was 13. I'd have to go and look. There's so many of them now. I forget the specifics of her case, but it wasn't that long ago because she's only 20.
Okay.
Yeah, I think she was one of the ones at 13. They put her on double mastectomy at 15.
Wow.
They put her on they put her on testosterone and blockers at 13 years old. The blockers, which also can cause permanent side effects, and they're doing this stuff to children.
Yeah. Just for some background on the way this show works. So Knowles gets to decide what the topics are. So his prompt for this argument is up in the upper left. It's that the LGBTQ identity is a social contagion. So that's what they're going up to argue against at this point.
And so everyone that he is debating here is quote unquote trans, someone who says they're trans. So this is a biological man who tries to present as a woman. And let's just start.
I'm sitting here in front of you as a trans woman who is telling you that every issue I've had before, mental health problem before I started my hormones, is gone.
And I'm telling you, statistically, it's going to come back.
You're wrong. You can't predict the future.
The science.
I don't know.
I'm not predicting the future, and maybe you'll be one of the lucky few. I guess my point is this: if you look at not just one anecdote, but actually your anecdote actually fits into the scientific literature.
It doesn't.
It does.
It doesn't. I've been a trans person since I was a child. I've experienced the gender dysphoria my entire life. And I got on my hormones, everything started improving.
You started doing it a year ago.
About a year ago. I've also been socially out as a gender ambiguous person since I was 22.
Sure.
You don't know anything about my medical history.
I'm not claiming to know anything about your medical history.
You're trying to claim that you know about my medical history.
I certainly have not. When have I done that?
Then in the future, I'm not going to be okay.
No, I'm not saying that either. I'm saying statistically.
Okay, can we just, first of all, say, I have to pause it for a second, because one of the things they like to do, and I don't mean they as in trans people, I mean they as in woke people or people of any fundamentalist faith who don't believe in a back and forth, is they won't even let him speak. They won't even let him finish his thought. He's trying to explain what he means by your experience even fits into the medical literature of what we see. It's a good example. Here's why. But I'm sorry, I know it's a biological man, but when I see her, my brain says she. Anyway, he, she, what have you, this person won't even let him speak.
But I love how he keeps his cool the whole time. He's like, yeah, no, I didn't say that. No,
you probably won't. I'm saying that the largest data set.
How many trans women do you know? Trans people, I'd love to know.
Apparently not enough.
Clearly not enough, babe.
What I'm telling you, and I know you're talking over me because you don't want to hear this, but what I'm telling you is the largest data set, the largest study ever conducted to follow the long-term outcomes of transgender identifying people, found that not only did their suicide rates and depression not improve, their anxiety actually went up. And so what I'm telling you is, if you're feeling a kind of euphoria that pretending that you were the opposite sex has made you feel better.
I'm the opposite sex.
Yes.
Well, it is pretending. It is pretending.
Yeah.
And I want to say something here and see what you guys think about this, and we can finish it. But you were asking us if you are someone who says that you're trans, and you demand that everyone pretends that that means that you are the opposite sex, or even worse, some like non-binary, some middle, something that doesn't exist, right? And you demand that people pretend that. You were actually asking, what you're asking is for people to deny reality, to speak an untruth,
to participate in your delusion.
Participate in it. Yes, you're demanding that. And I have a complicated, I guess, position on all of this because I get called everything. I get called transphobe by leftists, but then I also get called a trans enabling Pharisee by some people on the right. I have been rebuked and told that I'm speaking the lies of Satan. So enabling transgenderism. So I've been called both, but my position is basically you have what is being called transgender. There are some people who have something that we used to call gender dysphoria. It's less than 1% of the population. And it's a weird unease. It's not normal. It's a mental health issue. And it's a weird unease with your biological sex and your body. And what used to happen is the mental health field would spend time with these people and try and help them figure out what the underlying causes might be and help them to eventually feel comfortable with their body and their biological sex. That's what used to happen.
Right, because it's actually mental illness.
Right.
That's how we used to classify it.
That's how we used to classify it. And if you exhausted everything and you weren't able to come to terms with it and nothing worked and they couldn't come to any, if you were someone like Buck Angel's the first person who ever got so-called sex reassignment surgery in California. Buck has talked about having to go through a whole years-long list of many, 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 many things before they said, okay, as a last resort, we'll let you do this elective surgery to try and live and present as the opposite sex. But we don't do that anymore. We don't make people go through like as a last resort. Now it's the first resort. Now it's you must be the opposite sex.
Right. Gender affirming care is the first option, not the last option.
Yes.
I mean, ultimately, it is sick and twisted and evil that rather than trying to help these people in a realistic way, we're like, yeah, we'll just play along. And we're going to put you on pills that you're going to be on for the rest of your life. And if you get any of these surgeries, you're going to have to deal with that for the rest of your life, rather than dealing with the mental illness that is at the core.
Yes.
And now it's become a fad because, it's 0.01% of the population or whatever. But it's gotten to be almost 1% of the population because, like so many other like teenage fads, it's a go along to get along type thing now. People think it's cool because then you get a different type of acceptance. And that in itself is also an issue with just going along with this, because most of these kids are not going to actually ever follow through with this.
Mm-hmm.
But if you put them on the pills or do something irreversible, it's too late at that point.
They're started down the path.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And everything.
Or you're just sterile for the rest of your life.
Yeah. And everything is at that point, there are no positive reinforcements to help you go if you change your mind to go the other way. Someone like Chloe Cole, who we mentioned, has to buck against everything to detransition because now she is reviled by the
you
very
get ostracized
community.
in a whole different way than you were already ostracized when you started the transition.
Yes. They hate her. Okay, I have some more questions I want to ask about this, but do you guys mind if I play the rest of this clip?
Oh, no.
Okay.
Go for it.
You are pretending. And I don't think that it's respectful to lie to people.
Pretty good, don't you guys think? Yeah.
You're not pretending.
I think
Again, yes, you're pretending pretty good. When I look at you, I think you pass well. I see my brain says you pass well, but it doesn't mean that you are a woman. You're not a woman.
Well, Keri, that's like no different than like Colin Farrell passed really well as a very fat man playing Penguin. But like it was a bodysuit and it wasn't real.
Right. Or Rachel Dolezal. She passed for years as a Black woman. She even was head of the NAACP in one of her state chapters. Like she passed. she built a whole career around being Black, but she isn't Black. It doesn't make her Black.
Right.
Everybody else here.
I think you might be really angry with me for telling you the truth.
I feel like I'm remaining quite.
You're remaining relatively calm, but I think you're
angry.
I think you're probably not thrilled that I'm telling you that you're not really.
I don't care.
Do you not? You're sitting here talking to me. It seems like you care a lot.
I'm here to give context to a conversation that you clearly know nothing about. You don't know any trans. Do you know personally any trans people? You never really.
I know a number of people who identify as trans.
And so they're not.
I know some who have gone back the other way because it was ruining their lives.
I'd love to hear.
Yeah. You'd love to hear about the people who regret it.
They are.
Oh, I don't know. I was just with a couple of them the other night.
Okay, what are their
political
names?
Party. Well, Chloe Cole would be probably the most famous example.
Okay.
I don't know if you've seen her work. She's doing much better now. I've interviewed a number of people who have detransitioned on the show. The only reason I'm mentioning the detransitioners is you might think that it's really nice to affirm you in your delusion that you're the opposite
It's not
sex.
nice. It's I have to do it. If I didn't start my gender hormone therapy, anything like that, I wouldn't be here right now having this conversation with you because of gender dysphoria.
Because what you would have?
I just think that there are a lot of avenues that could have happened if I didn't start my hormone. I just don't think that the broadness that you're bringing to the table right now
I'm bringing scientific specificity and logical precision.
You've met a detransition person, but
so he's bringing science, something very specific, or he's trying to talk about the data and what happens. And the point he was trying to make earlier, by the way, that he was never able to make is that, actually the data shows that people typically do experience this sort of euphoria right after going on the hormones and starting all the medical and surgical transition, and then it plummets after. But in the first year,
and the suicidal rates are no different pre and post.
I've actually got a question. Do you think so back before we made this popular to be trans, because we have in society, it's become popular if you're younger to be trans. This particular, gentleman, do you think that had trans not become popular, would this person probably just be the traditional, really flamboyant gay guy?
Oh,
effeminate male.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out, I don't know.
That's why there are a lot of people. There are a lot of organizations like LGB without the T.
Yeah.
And Gays Against Groomers. There are a lot of organizations that claim to that try to represent the voices of gay people who do not agree with the TRAs, with the trans rights activists. Right. And one of the arguments that I hear most often, actually from lesbians, one of the arguments I hear most often is from from lesbian friends is this is so wrong and so evil, and personally they are vocal against it because they say, I would have been one of these women.
I was a tomboy.
Yes, and I was a tomboy.
If I had grown up now, you would have pushed me into being a man instead of a butch lesbian.
Yes, and you would have taken my breasts from me, and this whole ideology, you would have done this to me when I was a kid, and I can't even imagine growing up right now and being a masculine girl, like a more masculine girl, or a girl who's on that part of the spectrum, what they call the gender spectrum. Yeah, I think you're right, Michelle. Absolutely.
Which back to Michael Knowles' point, probably in society would have allowed this person to live like a happier life, at least. I don't know.
At least a healthier life. You're not on pills for the rest of your life. You didn't have parts of your body voluntarily cut off or changed.
Yeah.
I mean, even if it's just shaving the Adam's apple, that's still a surgery.
Yeah. Feels rough.
I met someone who watches my show sometimes, who's detransitioned, who would have just been probably a little more at some points of his life on that effeminate scale, like you said. Someone who's just traditionally would have maybe, not been called macho, but also not been called like super femme or anything. Just wouldn't really be easy to put into a box. who talked to me about those pressures of when this ideology became popular, and when people started saying, well, then you must be this, or that sort of social pressure to transition, like you're talking about, Michelle.
Well, that quick thing too, I was like, that's why it's almost important too, like we don't try to put men and women in these tight little boxes, because if we do, then if they don't fit into it, say like a guy, for whatever reason, maybe is just, we'll use the word a little more effeminate.
Yes.
And society says, oh, well, he's not like the rest of the guys, so he must either be gay or he must be trans, or, we need to be careful doing that as a society, because you might push people into something they really aren't either.
You're pushing people into identity boxes.
Yes, that's a better way of putting it. Yeah.
Which, like, that'll lock a person in for who knows how long, and if they ever find their way out of that box.
Yes.
Rosa had a question in the chat. She said, I'd be interested to know if there's a underlying difference between the reason why girls and boys transition. There has been, apparently. There's a lot more girls who transition, and it tends to be girls who have been on the spectrum, and we're not sure exactly why. There's a lot less boys that transition but call themselves trans because of the autogynephilia situation. But girls have been actually transitioning, especially those on the autistic spectrum.
Oh, that's interesting.
Probably because of it's easier to persuade.
And actually, that's relatively new since it became mainstream, since gender ideology started being pushed on kids, where they're sort of saying, like, doing all this programming and doing all this brainwashing in elementary schools and kindergartens, even, where they're introducing people to the like little kids to the idea of, like, some of you might not have been born in the right body, like, you need to figure it out. No, you don't. Why are you introducing this to kids that never would have grappled with this, right? Before that, historically, it was mostly boys. And it was mostly, it would present, from what I read, it would present when they were young, like toddlers, like age 4 or so. And it was very, like you said, 0.01% of the population. And it usually had some sort of underlying issue there that the therapist would work with them to figure out what that was, like something else going on, some comorbidity. But with since it became exploded in popularity, and now it's been pushed on people for over a decade, like you said, Brahma, now it's mostly girls, and it's called late onset gender dysphoria because they are not presenting this way at 4 years old, like we saw historically little boys were. It's later. It's when they're
high school peer pressure.
High school peer pressure. Yes.
What Chad said in the chat. It's a social contagion. It is what it's become.
Yes. Yes. Hey, little Chad, social contagion impacts girls way higher than boys. Yes.
Yeah.
And then the numbers, and also, like you mentioned, the numbers of men, adult men, who are now claiming that they are trans in adulthood, where it didn't present when they were younger, but in adulthood are claiming it, like you said, Brahma, that's mostly not even, they don't have gender dysphoria. They're autogynephiles. It's a sexual fetish. And a lot of people, a lot of so-called trans people, people with gender dysphoria really hate being lumped in with the autogynephiles.
Which is like Leah Thomas, the swimmer that beat out Riley Gaines. Autogynephile. It's not the easiest word.
Little Chad says adult men claiming they're trans or guys getting their kink off. Yes, that's what I'm saying.
They want to present themselves in front of women as a woman, even though they are still fully intact males that get aroused by doing that, like in a locker room.
Yes.
So would you consider like a Bruce Jenner in that category?
Honestly,
I don't know what Bruce Jenner is.
I don't know, but probably because it was adulthood.
It was late adulthood.
Yes, and I think he probably gets off on seeing himself as a woman. Like
Probably.
That's the whole thing. That's the kink. Is like they like to see themselves as a woman. They like to dress in women's underwear. It's a whole fetish thing. It's not like ever since I was 4, I felt like I should have been a girl.
It's more the cross-dressing of the old days, not actual trans anything.
Yeah. Okay. just want to thank a couple people. This one must be for you, Michelle.
It's DL.
Oh, DL. Fucarella and Napping Natalie for $1.99. Thank you for the super sticker. What is that about?
Pucarella, because last Tuesday night I got the stomach, like a 24-hour stomach bug, and was I called myself Pucarella.
Good to see you. DL, deranged lunatic in disguise. And ADL, good to see you, dude. For $1.99 says I have complicated feelings here. That's okay. I'm sure it causes complicated feelings and thoughts. And so, if you have questions in the chat, like Rosa had a question, feel free to drop it. Or if there's things you want to know what we think about certain things, let us know.
And none of us are experts. We're just giving our opinions.
Yeah. And we probably disagree on a few things. We haven't even gotten to that place yet. But yeah, Peter Small for $5 says the growth in girls identifying as trans is driven both by group pressure and the trauma of hypersexualization of adolescent girls. I think you're right.
Mm-hmm.
I think you're right. A lot of the girls, as you mentioned, Brahma, who are now claiming that they're trans in adolescence, a lot of them have autism or they have abuse in their past. They've already been abused in some way. Sometimes that's sexual abuse, which there have been detransitioners who've talked about how they think they gravitated towards it because they wanted to make themselves unappealing and to remove any external sexual features, female features.
So just doing a quick Ask AI, and it's popping up a few studies, but between 4 and 5.4% of autistic children identify as transgender.
That's
compared
huge.
to 0.7% of non-autistic children.
What? Yeah, it's huge.
So it could be some social contagion in that, and who knows in that situation. But that's just been in the past like 2 or 3 years. They've started looking at those numbers and going, what's going on there? So
that's crazy.
There is something happening there.
Yes. Okay, we're going to continue. There's just a little bit more on this one. Then we have a couple more.
You know a transgender woman.
I know people who identify as transgender.
And how are they doing?
Not well.
Really?
Yeah. And statistically, it's a good line. That was off camera. They said because they know me. Statistically, 32 to 50% of people who identify as trans will kill themselves. And that's really bad. And I think that if there's anything we can do to improve that number. But do we know
about like their access that they have to hormone therapy? Do we know about any access to medical care?
Yeah, it doesn't.
What is it?
It doesn't improve. That's what I was trying to tell you about the study.
I'm waiting.
The suicide rates don't.
Oh gosh. Oh gosh.
I'm waiting.
That's the devil. That's the devil. I can't stand that contempt and that's
No, that's the other thing with men pretending to be women is they try to take on actual mannerisms of women that they think are women's mannerisms. And that's the other dead giveaway all the time. Yeah. They'll do those little attitude things like pretending to be a woman in that way as well. And it's so annoying.
Well, they take on like the most annoying. They like must observe the most annoying women.
Yeah, the most exaggerated mannerisms that they can possibly take on.
Okay, now when I pause it in this frame, he's not passing as well. It just is paused. But there's something about when he's in motion that he comes off very feminine. But you're right. This part is just so. I know so many woke people who do this. Who just rude and condescending. That's the word, condescension. And it's like, you're not really interested in what I have to say. You're just being a jerk. Like, why are you being a jerk? Like, if you don't have anything, if you're so confident in your position, trans woman, then what would Michael Knowles talking about the scientific literature, what would that do to your position? Like, let him say it without being a jerk.
Doesn't improve. That's what I was trying to tell you about the study.
I'm waiting.
The suicide rates don't improve after they access all of that supposed care.
Where did you get that from? I'm very interested.
From the American Journal of Psychiatry.
Yeah, also not very interested. You know what I mean? Like, I'm very interested. Yeah, no, you're not.
As she looks, looks away.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Brahma, it sounds like you've seen more episodes of this than I have. So those little red flags that are coming up in the corner, that's when they can like tag each other out or something and another one comes in.
Right. If the majority of the people raise a red flag, then you get pulled out of the seat and somebody else gets to take the spot.
Okay.
What is this dumb little game?
They basically go ahead.
So on this one, transgenderism should be eradicated from public life entirely is his prompt.
Okay.
And this is an infamous man named Blossom, a trans woman who I don't think passes well at all, unlike the previous person. And he is very nasty. I've seen him in the Jubilee bookers love him. I think he's been in a few of their videos. So here we go.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the Wayans brothers pass better in my checks.
Hi.
Hello.
Blossom. She, her, hers powerhouse.
The Blossom Powerhouse. Lovely to meet you.
Yes. Go ahead. I want to know
Go ahead. I'm going to
your
talk.
ideology around transgenderism, something that doesn't exist. It just sounds more like conservative propaganda. So I kind of want to know a little bit more about what you're trying to communicate.
Okay. I think for all of history everywhere, people have understood the human person to have something to do with his body. So like your body has something to do with who you are. Now, there is an alternative view, which is called Gnosticism. It's a view that our bodies don't really have anything to do with who we are, that the body is maybe even evil, and that our true selves have no connection to our bodies. And I see in the transgender ideology a kind of Gnosticism that says that you could look like a man, you could have a man's genetics, you could have a man's genitals, you could have a man's everything. But if you feel on some deep level that you're really a woman, then you are really a woman. And I don't think that's true. And I think that the social effects of that are really bad because it leads to the depriving women of their legitimate rights. In some cases, it leads to rapes, notably in the last few years. And it also leads to women losing their sports competitions and their scholarships, and it's just disordered and false. And it also leads to more people adopting this identity, which leads to very high rates of anxiety, depression, and suicide. So it's bad for everyone, and it's not grounded in reality.
Okay. So first of all, very impressed that Blossom let him talk the whole time.
Mhm.
But I noticed Brahma that he was doing that thing you mentioned where it's like, what would a sassy black woman look like while she's thinking?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Posing. Yep.
Posing. Okay, here we go.
Ooh, I don't even think you understand what you say sometimes. I don't think you even understand what you say, because when we talk about these rape cases of women in the restroom, they're coming from cis men like you. So let's be very clear.
No,
where
that's
it's
not
coming
true.
from.
What? What? Look at all of them clapping like a point was made. No. It doesn't even make any sense. So it's like there are so many cases of so-called trans women, these men pretending to be women who have raped women in prisons, for one thing, where they're putting these male prisoners into women's prisons just because they say that they're trans.
Yeah, 15% of the women's prisons is men.
Yes. And
didn't they change that? Did they reverse it?
I'm sure Trump's doing something about it right now, but as of last year, it was 15% of prisoners in women's prisons was males.
Oh my gosh.
One of Trump's EO's executive orders addressed this, but it wasn't on a state level. It was on a federal level. No federal funds, will go towards giving sex change operations to prisoners. So this guy Blossom is basically, this is what they say is, so if a rape happens, then that person who claimed to be a trans woman is suddenly magically no longer a trans woman. Now they revert back to being one of you guys, a cis male.
Well, they weren't trans;
right?
They were a cis male in a dress.
Yes, that's not even an argument, but that's what they're putting forth.
In 2021. Well, I'm just trying to correct you. Well, I would never interrupt a black woman.
Here's the thing about me as a black
Pause it
trans
real
woman.
quick, because that was a great line. Never interrupt a black woman while she's speaking. And he goes, I would never interrupt a black woman.
Because you're a man.
But you would have to be a woman.
Not a threat to cis women. And I think it is harmful that you are going around here screwing.
Hold on.
Thank you. Here's the thing about me as a Black trans woman. I am not a threat to cis women. And I think it is harmful that you are going around here spewing that rhetoric, weaponizing this rhetoric against trans people.
Weaponizing facts.
Transgenderism does not exist. We as trans people exist. We are 1% of the population. And there is a lot of power in the trans identity because you are sitting here spewing something to me that doesn't really
I'm not spewing anything. I'm just stating facts.
I have lived experience. You don't. And you never will. But I do have a question.
I have lived experience.
What if one of your kids came out as trans?
That's the best.
I'm alive.
That's the best. That when they try to say that, if they ever try to say that to you and you're watching this, if they ever try to say this nonsense about lived experience, like he handled it so well. It's just a bunch of crap. We're all alive. We all have lived experience. That's not some authority that you get to wave over me. My goodness.
Yes. How would you?
God forbid. I mean, I would obviously love my children, and I would try to do what's best for my children. And the best thing that I could do to be respectful and also to be conducive to their flourishing is to tell them the truth, which is that they're not really girls.
Oh, come on! I can't even imagine your relationship with your children. No shade, but
right. That's a great relationship.
I just cannot even imagine that. But here's the reality: we exist. Again, people like you do not have the intellectual capacity to hold conversations like this because.
Oh my goodness. I have to pause. This is one of my biggest pet peeves is dumb people. I'm saying dumb people calling someone who's smarter than them dumb. It's a bit like, I don't know, Brahma, who's a terrible basketball player? It's a bit like someone who's just not good saying that Michael Jordan is awful at basketball. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's just like, what are you talking about? Do you know he's so good that they brought him here to debate 25 of you?
Actually, we got a good one in the chat. AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez.
Yes.
Dumbest person in the room, constantly talks as if she is the smartest.
Constantly talks. Oh my gosh.
Lil Chance and Bronny James.
Yeah, that's LeBron's son that he got drafted onto his team.
Okay, it's a bit like Bronny James
telling MJ
saying that LeBron can't play. Okay. Here, I'm gonna let this play out.
In a minute, you're going to reduce this down to genitalia, and then we're going to have to shift it somewhere else because obviously,
in a minute,
like you, that's where they go, right?
In a minute, what I'm going to do is correct something you said. When you said that the rapes that have occurred in these bathrooms are cis men.
White cis men, I should say, actually.
That isn't true. Loudoun County, 2021, the big case that actually ended up flipping the state was because there was a boy who wore a skirt, went into the girl's bathroom and raped a girl in a particularly hideous way. And do you know what happened? Hold on, don't cut me off. You said you wouldn't.
A cis boy. It was not a trans woman. All y'all do is go back to cis boys. You're always talking about cis boys. I don't understand the fascination with trans bodies and what's happening in the bathroom. It is mostly happening.
I think you're filibustering because you don't want me to tell you what happened in the bathroom.
Who?
Me. I think you're filibustering.
Child, no.
I think that you're distracting from the fact that a boy wearing a skirt in a girl's bathroom.
A boy, but not a trans woman.
Well, there's no such thing as a trans woman.
Oh, yes, it is. You're looking at one right now.
I'm looking at.
You're looking at me
I'm
right
looking
now.
at a.
So Blossom basically is saying that the minute that a boy in a skirt is not a boy in a skirt, like conservatives like Michael Knowles or whoever would say it is, it's not a boy in a skirt, it's a trans woman. Unless they rape someone, then they become a boy in a skirt.
Yeah.
then they're like, oh, they're not one of us.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And that person went on to do it again after they transferred him to another school rather than prosecuting that rape. And they tried to prosecute the dad for coming down to the. Do you guys remember this story?
I do.
Yeah.
They tried to prosecute the dad for going to the what was it? The city council meeting or the school council meeting and saying what happened.
Who was behind trying to prosecute him?
I'm not sure. Little Chad will know if he's still in the chat because he lives out that way. But I mean, this is also when they started branding parents domestic terrorists. The Biden administration.
Well, that's why I was wondering, was it the FBI or was it something local that tried to prosecute the guy?
I'm just
Little
looking
Chad, let us know.
I'm not sure, but he was pardoned in the end. The
Mm.
governor pardoned him.
Yeah.
The dad.
Yeah, once Youngkin got elected, then he got pardoned, I think.
So when they put up these red flags, Brahma, that means that they're tired of these two talking and one of them wants to go in?
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
And once you get a majority, basically they're saying that this is an ineffective argument.
Okay.
Experience.
I'm looking
With
at
lived experience. You are looking at a trans woman who has been transitioning for over 20 years, who
Yeah.
has lived experience.
Yes,
You're talking to an activist here.
but your
You're
identity
talking to a
is not
debater here.
grounded
You're
in
talking to somebody
reality.
that's extreme. Oh, I am reality.
I'm not really talking
In
to
your
anyone because
head,
you keep
I'm not.
talking over
in
me.
your head, I'm not, but I am in reality.
Yeah.
I'm here in front of you right now talking to you.
You're confused
Because
about your identity.
you are confused
I'm not
at the fact that you don't really have any talking points right now because
Then why aren't you letting me speak?
You really don't.
If I have nothing to say, why aren't you letting me
Put
speak?
me on your show. How about that?
Then it would become your show, I think.
Oh yeah, I should have a show. I should have a show.
In 2018, there were 2 rapes in bathrooms, and one in Wisconsin, one in Georgia.
From men,
also
cis
because
men,
of the
say it.
transgender identity.
But say it, cis men.
If
men.
you're going to describe a boy who wears a skirt and goes into a girl's bathroom as a cis man, no, I didn't.
No, you are. This is the example that you run to. Past that, you have nothing.
I've just given you 3
have
examples.
nothing.
I'm giving you 3
You have
examples in
nothing.
recent years.
You don't. You've
So,
been struggling this entire
news to me.
time.
Have I?
Yeah, you have.
I think
Did you say pause it, Brahma?
Yeah, so Blossom has been transitioning for 20 years. If he went into the girl's bathroom and punched somebody, would that automatically make him a cis man again?
According to Blossom's reasoning, yes, you're suddenly
Exactly.
now a trans man. I mean, a cis man.
Yeah, you've stopped being a trans woman and you're now a cis man because you committed violence in a girl's bathroom.
So the trans guy that like broke the volleyball player's nose or whatever, like sent her to the hospital in like Delaware, wherever that was, like that was then a cis man
Was
again.
cis for that split second when the violence occurred.
It's magic. It's magic.
But Michael Knowles isn't living in reality.
Right.
Blossom is.
Blossom's also an activist. Yes, we know. I'm an activist. Yeah. Got it.
I don't know about a debater, though.
I don't know about a debater
No,
either.
I don't think that's the strong suit there.
Just a lot of times leftists think that being the loudest person in the room, the most condescending, and just repeating yourself the way that cult leaders and con artists and phony TV preachers do, they think that's how you win a debate. You just yell something repeatedly, and then all of them in the room are like, "Yeah, you go." It's like that's not an argument.
Well, and I think too, what's frustrating here is they're just like they're not arguing like reality. Like they're arguing exclusively feelings. Like, yes, feelings can factor into facts and definitely can play a role. But you can't exclusively argue from feelings. Like, a little kid might feel like they're a dog, like a little boy or girl might be, or that'd probably be more a little boy might think he's a dog that goes, rough, but that's not reality. He's a little boy pretending to be a dog.
Yes.
Yeah. And I mean, we can kind of tie it into, this is more like a deprogrammed than a Christian panel, but I mean,
That's true.
I'm sure we can find some ways to tie it in. I mean, so Michael Knowles, just in case some people out there don't know, is extremely Catholic. So what's actually interesting about this is he is arguing it without any faith-based argument. It is all using their science.
Right. I find this very effective actually in debate, because if a person is not a Christian, then
you can't argue from faith.
You can't argue from faith because they don't share your faith. I mean, you can explain to them what you think. You can explain to them, this is my faith and this is what I think is true, but they don't have that same base. They don't view the world that way. So anything, if you're like, because God said or the Bible said, it's like, they're like, well, I don't believe in God or the Bible.
And
so
he could point to 20 or 30 places in the Bible where it would refute anything, but that's not effective arguing with somebody who is not a believer.
Who's not a believer. Exactly. And the thing is, a lot of times you don't have to. That's why I think, like you pointed out, he's a very strong believer. and
Very Orthodox Catholic.
very Orthodox Catholic, but he's able to also make a secular argument, an argument from science and from reality, which aligns with, it's so funny to me. I think we've talked about this on the show before, how much reality, since I'm probably the newest Christian on this panel, it was a shock to me to realize, oh, reality aligns with scripture. Science aligns with scripture. Like, it makes sense. Oh, okay. That's because God is truth. I get it now.
Right.
Like, I feel like a dummy sometimes.
Well, I mean, it's like most people think that Christians only argue the abortion topic from Christianity, but there's plenty of science about, science has gone from, a baby's viable at this age down to 6 weeks is the heartbeat, all that kind of science is falling more in line with the religion view than the religion view having to fall in line with the science view that was there, 30, 40 years ago. Yeah. We already knew it. They're starting to get there because science is getting better at figuring it out.
Yeah. We also have committed non-believers who come to the chat sometimes. One is here, John Bertram. He says, "Damn right, Keri, I love you to bits, but I will never believe." I just want you to know, if you're a non-believer, you're welcome here. You're welcome to see what Christians think about stuff. And if you have questions, feel free. And John's here, and one of our mods.
I want to say, is it John? I just want to say to John, they say never. Everything I say I never do, I end up doing. So you might want to watch that one.
That's true. Okay. Let's finish this clip, and then I have one more, and I want to thank a couple.
Watch me, thanks.
Bye. Goodbye.
Oh, wait. This is right before Blossom starts getting really, again, condescending and just rude. Like, why do you have to do this?
Yeah, you have.
I think the trans lady doth protest too much, me thinks.
Bye. Goodbye.
Oh my God.
Perhaps I'll see you on my show.
Yes, invite me.
Yeah.
Get my email. Tell your people to get my email address. How about that?
Yeah.
Good job.
You hear how they all they think Blossom did a good job?
Like I would need the Holy Spirit, the anointing of the Lord, like the love of God to help me get through what he just did. Because you're just kind of getting attacked.
Yeah.
Well, that's kind of what this show is. I mean, Charlie Kirk did one as well a few months ago, and it's the exact same thing.
Do any of them get aggressive back with them?
Not I mean, I haven't watched the ones where it's the leftist 25-on-1 and the leftist being the one, but for the most part, everybody kind of keeps their temper. The thing you also have to remember is most of these people aren't professional debaters and don't have all the info memorized like Knowles or Ben Shapiro or Charlie Kirk. This is what they do. So, yeah. I mean, a little bit of grace there, but it's still ridiculous arguments because they're all arguing from feelings.
Yeah.
From feelings and sass.
The one with Kirk had a few, like John said, had a few rather ugly moments, but
I put a scripture in the private chat just so we could bring it back, I guess, because Brian brought that up to the Christian panel. Because basically with this, what you're dealing with is people who they're not accepting truth, because there is truth. You want to call it science, that's fine, but there is truth, and I mean this is the truth right here.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is a verse that Michelle shared, Genesis 1:27. So God created man in his own image, and in the image of God he created him, male and female. He created them. Man for mankind. It's like God created male and female. That the thing about, from a Christian perspective, maybe I could ask you this question, because this is like a practical kind of question. Sometimes out in the world, I encounter people who are not as online as we are, and they're not involved in all these cultural and political debates. Mm-hmm. But in their social circles, they've become a little more, I would say, open to woke ideology, the woke religion, which is because it's become the dominant cultural religion in the past 20 years or so. And so sometimes I will encounter very good-hearted people who don't know anything about this ideology or its roots or where it comes from, and are not online to see all of the excesses and the abuses, but they will have picked up some of the tenets of this belief system. And sometimes these are people who were raised in the Christian church and still consider themselves Christian, but now they will say things like, well, the woke Christians, the woke bastardization of Christianity is appealing to them. So they will say things like, well, isn't, rejecting, isn't saying that that a trans woman is not a woman, isn't that mean? Isn't that cruel? How would you answer a question like that?
I would say that you can't have love without truth. And God is love, and we are to be love. And to tell someone a lie is not to love them, but we need to speak the truth in love. That's how I would say that.
Yeah.
In fact, Paul said to, I forget off the top of my head which church, have I become your enemy because I tell you the truth?
Yes.
I mean, the line that you hear from almost every one of these people is, I'm in the wrong body.
Yeah.
Which is automatically accusing God of making a mistake,
Mhm.
which is automatically anti-Christian.
Mhm.
I mean, the verse we just read, knitting you in the womb, all of those things say that God specifically designed you the way you are. So if you were going to say that God made the mistake by putting you in the wrong body, then that cannot jive with Christianity.
Right.
Yes, because there could be, I feel like it happens more with girls for whatever reason. There could be, say, a girl who's a total daddy's girl who maybe identifies with men a lot more than other women, but at the end of the day, you're still a girl. Just.
So, what would you say to someone who says, how would you explain the difference between saying something that's true in love and saying something that's true but with cruelty? Because I think you could do both. Does that make sense? Like, I think you could do what I know some Christians who speak the truth, but they do it with love, and that's what I try to encourage. I know some people who speak the truth and they do it just with nastiness. It's almost like they think speaking the truth requires being actually mean.
Yeah, well, that's not going to win people over, because at the end of the day, it's like it has to be done from a spirit of love, like a place of love. Let me think. I'm on the spot. So I saw something years ago that stayed with me, and it was, let's see, I want to say, love without truth is hypocrisy. Truth without love is brutality.
Yes, truth without love is brutality. That's a good way of putting it.
Yeah.
That's a great way of putting it. Okay.
Because even go back to, like, even we'll take it to Jesus. When Jesus tells the rich young ruler, this is what you lack the rich young ruler says, I've kept the law from my youth. I've done this. And Jesus says, well, here's the one thing you lack. And when it says that the rich young ruler is upset, it literally says that Jesus comforts him, but he doesn't change his mind. He just comforts him. He said he wasn't going to take back what was said. He just does it in a loving way. And then the rich young ruler, unfortunately, walked away.
Yeah. A rebuke.
Yes.
So this is where we might disagree. This is a practical discussion of being a Christian. I don't know. You guys can tell me what you think about this. And if you rebuke me, that's okay. I'll think about it. It'll actually mean a lot coming from you. So when I have been called a trans enabling Pharisee, it is because my personal, the way that I operate in the world with people is that I don't pretend that men can magically become women or women can become men. That's not possible. And I'm not going to pretend that. I do not believe that men should be allowed to compete in women's sports. It doesn't matter what hormone treatment they've gone through or how well they pass or anything. They're still biological men. They should not be allowed in women's sports. They have a biological advantage, obviously. And I don't believe in pushing any of this stuff on children or teaching children anything as if this is normal and anything other than treating it as anything other than the mental health disorder that it is. It's a mental health disorder. It's been in the DSM forever. It's, less than 1% of people until we started treating this like it's normal. And we need to tell kids that they should choose. Which are they? Are they regular or trans? Are they boring or trans? Like, that's basically what we're doing to kids. So that's what I believe. When it comes to practically how I interact with people, I have some friends who would be called trans or who call themselves trans, who claim to have gender dysphoria, who also notably fully admit it's a mental disorder, that they have a mental disorder, and who attempt to present and live as the opposite sex.
But if it's the two people that I think you're talking about, specifically, neither of them actually claims to be that which they are presenting as.
Right.
Very specifically, they are against doing that or trying to force somebody to do that.
Right. And it's probably not the same people, because I'm thinking of some of my friends who are not public people, but then I've interviewed friends online who are the same. Sarah Higdon being one.
Buck Angel being the other that we already brought up earlier.
Yes. And
Blair
they don't.
White.
Right. And Buck says, I'm a biological woman. Clearly, I didn't actually change my sex. So in those cases, I tend to, here's where we might disagree. Because they're not trying to force a lie on me, and they're not pushing some lie that they actually changed their sex or anything. And they're admitting that it's a mental disorder and this is the thing that they struggle with. And this is how they've chosen to deal with it, is to try and relieve it by pretending to be the opposite sex. I will use the he pronoun for Buck, for example, or the she pronoun for Sarah, because number one, they're not trying to force me to accept a lie. And number two, actually, when I look at Buck, like, my brain thinks he, sort of like with that first one who was passing very well in the video tonight. And it would be a lot of mental gymnastics for me to have to do the opposite. And I kind of am like, I'm not going to do the mental gymnastics unless you're such a horrible person like Leah Thomas. And then I'm going to go through those gymnastics to make sure I call you he, which is what you are. Because I'm not going to validate you, Leah Thomas, right. So that's kind of how I've been on it. And so I had someone tell me, I met Blair White at a conference, and I had a photo with Blair, and I shared it and said I didn't even say he or she, there was no reason to. I just said, got to meet Blair White. And this person was like, you're speaking in the lies of Satan. Why don't you use Blair's real name, the name that Blair was born with? I'm like, I don't even know what that is.
Most of us don't even know Blair's real name.
I don't know what that is.
And like, and also, like, how is that showing the love of God? If I'm like, when I meet someone like Blair in a green room, if I walk in and I'm like, hey, Blair, you're a man, which Blair knows and admits, like, hey, man, you're a man. What's the name your parents gave you at birth? That's what I'm going to call you. Like, by the way,
walk in. Hey,
how
bro.
are you? Like, nice to meet you. Like, how is that like, that ends all friendship there. I mean, Blair doesn't require me to speak a lie.
Interpersonal communications are different than the whole belief system. Like, I don't believe in gay marriage. If I were to meet, in person, Mike Harlow or Dave Rubin, am I going to be a jerk to them because I don't believe in gay marriage? No. I know Mike. We've been on many streams together. I consider him a friend. I mean, Dave Rubin, I'm against IVF. Yes. Dave Rubin adopted 2 babies. Personally, I'm completely against it. But am I going to be a dick to him just because of that? No. Interpersonal, speaking to one-on-one directly with the person is completely different than having your beliefs out there. And I don't find it hypocritical to have a one-on-one conversation with somebody and have a different communication with them than you would if you were broadcasting it to everybody.
Yes.
Because you're not trying to hide it. You're just trying to be kind, I guess, or it's not even accepting. It's just you're having a conversation with one person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's just, for me, it's a civility thing, and I'm choosing when I do it, and I won't do it for people who want me to speak lies, and I also don't do it for any made up. There's no Z's and Zers, so no, because that to me is a deviant mind. If you're trying to get me to say things that don't exist, even like
it's the love the sinner, hate the sin thing.
So we might disagree, and maybe you think, and maybe you're a Christian watching this and you're like, Keri, no, I agree with the person who rebuked you. You're totally wrong. You should never, ever, 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 there's no reason to ever use the opposite sex pronoun. And if that's the case, if you think that's the case, make it to me. I want somebody to make it to me in the comments without being a jerk. Because when it was made to me before, it wasn't convincing and it was just jerky.
Well, even Knowles in this video, in this overall larger video instead of the clips, during one of them, like, he just knows it's LGBTQ. He doesn't know that most of them are trans. So he does use the pronouns, and they act like it's a big gotcha moment. And he's like, well, I'm just going with what my eyes tell me.
Yeah,
I can be deceived by somebody. That doesn't make my argument any different.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I tend to try to, like, I think I've been on with Buck on your celebration stream, and I just address Buck as Buck.
You just
I just don't use pronouns if I can help it. But if somebody is somewhat passing, it's pretty hard, for, like you said, to trick your brain into using what the opposite of your eyes is saying.
Yes, and that's what the most of the TRAs want you to do too, is they're trying to say, when you can tell it's clearly a man, and they're like, no, say she. I'm like, no,
like the GameStop guy. It's
ma'am. No.
Well, and if you saw Blair on the street, you're gonna assume that Blair is a woman.
Definitely.
This is a great question. Nobody's ever even actually asked me this, Rosa. Would you draw the line when addressing a child or young person who's caught up in this, though? Yes, I would draw the line, because that's a child, and I'm not going to contribute to that delusion. I'm not going to be an adult who's telling them, I think it's true you're the opposite sex. No. Yeah. I don't know. That's where I'm at. I don't know if this is where I'll always be on it, but practically that's how I'm dealing with this right now. And like I said, if you disagree, feel free to explain why in the comments. I'd like to read it. Actually, I'd like to read the argument and practically how you would deal with situations like that. Cause I have a lot of friends who would be put in that trans umbrella. I guess relatively speaking, I do. And so it's like, then how would you navigate that? They know what I think. They know I think that they didn't obviously change their sex and that they have a mental disorder. And actually, they think both of those things too.
Yeah.
Well, and that's why I brought up like the gay thing or the IVF thing. I mean, those are also political fights that are going on. It's different, sort of. But it really is just you have friends that are gay. You have friends that have probably dealt with IVF. You have friends that say that they're trans. You're going to deal with the person different than you're not going to change your stance just because you're talking to that person.
Yes, I agree.
You're going to be civil when you're speaking with them directly.
I agree, Brahma.
Or even friendly. I mean, like, we all love Mike. Do I agree with the lifestyle? No, he knows that.
Yeah.
Well, and two, I just think, kind of what Keri, what you're bringing this back to like a Christian perspective, because you see it on especially places like social media so often, where it's really more like they're just trying to own the situation. And I think especially if you consider yourself, because a lot of these people put Christian in their bio. I don't really think a lot of these people are practicing Christians, but whatever. If you consider yourself a legitimate Christian, a honest Christian, then when you look at scripture, Jesus, the apostles, they're really not harsh when addressing the unsaved or the people outside of the house of God. Like Paul only gives sharp rebukes to Christians. Jesus only gives sharp rebukes to the Pharisees, who were the religious leaders of that day. They were supposed to be of the faith of that day. And we as Christians need to be very careful in how we are to be salt and light, but we are to be very careful in how we address those who are not of the house of faith. Because if we come across the way some come across, why would they want to become part of that faith? Like what about has made them want to have what you have? Like what about you being mean or yelling at them or or calling them names is going to make them want what you have. It's not going to.
I want to show this verse because this is exactly what you're talking about. And when, as a newer Christian, when I discovered these verses, I thought, oh my goodness, this makes so much sense. I didn't know this was in the Bible. It's exactly what you're talking about, Michelle. It's basically saying, and as somebody who had been on the outside and hating on Christians for so long, I didn't know that this was in there, that the Bible in this verse in this whole section in Corinthians, it talks about how as a Christian, you are called to judge your brothers and sisters in Christ, and you are called to out of love to bring them to account, like, but in that same section it says what you're saying. Who are you to judge those who are outside the church? It says, so it's talking about this is 1 Corinthians 5. It's actually reported there's sexual immorality among you, and a kind that even pagans do not tolerate. A man is sleeping with his father's wife, and you guys are proud. Shouldn't you rather have gone into mourning and put out of your fellowship that man who has been doing this? So basically say, you cannot keep worshiping with us if you're going to live in that sin. And then so he's talking about how a little bit of yeast, here it is down in 6, your boasting is not good. Don't you know that a little yeast leavens the whole batch of dough? Get rid of the old yeast so that you may be a new unleavened batch as you really are. And then down here is the part it's talking about, where is it? Oh, the verse 12. What business is it of mine to judge those outside the church? Are you not to judge those inside? God will judge those outside. Expel the wicked person from among you.
Yeah.
Yes. Jordan
Peterson. Make your bed. Clean your own room.
Make your bed. John Bertram says, did you hate on Christians, Keri? Yeah, I used to, quite a bit. I used to be very prejudiced. Okay, we've got to think. A couple people. ADL 1992. Thank you, sir, who for $4.99 says it's the autistic aspect that makes me especially disgusted with the TRA activists.
Yeah.
But for another $4.99, thank you, says, but I'm also angry that conservatives don't do more to address the problems that autistics deal with. And so the creeps are the only ones that they can turn to. I don't know enough about
I'm not close enough
what
to know
those
what
problems
the
are, but
yeah.
yes.
I am glad that that RFK Jr. is looking into different things that have definitely escalated the rise of autism amongst young boys and girls.
Yes, he's calling it out and talking. I didn't even know the numbers, how it's a rising epidemic. It seems it's an explosion of kids who are now being diagnosed as autistic. I didn't even know that was happening.
That's also language to a degree. I mean, yes, there is some of what RFK is talking about, but when they made autism a full spectrum, then they basically put everybody on that spectrum.
They pulled in people who otherwise wouldn't have been called autistic.
Right, like Asperger's is now, a high level of autism rather than being Asperger's. I mean, they've made a spectrum of things that they consider autistic now. Like when I grew up, the autistic kid that I knew never had said a word in his life and was never going to.
Very different from so-called
was incapable
Asperger's.
of taking care of himself, although he could do certain functions. But then there are people who are on the autistic spectrum that are also, considered geniuses, or they're virtuosos at, music or math, like Rain Man.
Well, and like Elon Musk.
Yeah.
Whereas
Elon would be considered very much on the spectrum at this point.
Yeah. Asperger's, everyone I've ever met who told me they think they're Asperger's doesn't actually have a diagnosis. They're usually someone who's very smart and articulate, who uses Asperger's as an excuse to be an Asperger. Sorry, I shouldn't say that on a Christian show. But to be a jerk, a meanie.
Yeah.
And then they're like, oh, I think I have Asperger's. That's why I was a mean. That's why I didn't notice. I just didn't notice the social cues. I'm like, no, you're just a jerk. The Great Sausage Ball Controversy.
That's either DL or Steven. I think it's I think it's DL.
DL. I think it's DL because I got another one from DL says, I could say I'm a pilot, but that don't mean I am. That's that would be a dangerous identity. Give it up for Robert Lowry, one of our mods. He says, if you got a stick, you ain't a chick.
It's pretty factual.
Sounds like something Johnny Cochran would say, Robert. Pirate Tomsky, give it up for our atheist mod in the UK, who was probably in bed now. For £5, he gave a super chat earlier and said, this is a classic case of ideological programming versus facts and reason. No matter what you say, they will not listen because they're not allowed to. Absolutely true. It's like cult. It's cult think. You're not allowed to think in a cult.
Mm-hmm.
KB, what's up, KB, for $2 says, you're right, Keri. This person is a mess.
I think that was Blossom.
Blossom's definitely a mess.
White girl hoeing for $1.99.
That's DL. And I always say hoeing because, you know, they're out in the garden. They're hoeing. It's not to be mistaken with the other.
It's a little picture of her there with the garden hoe. Okay. Says, let's do a DNA test and see how it turns out. And then DL, Deranged Lunatic, under their real name, $1.99 says, every knee will bow and every tongue shall confess. Thank you very much. And then White Girl Hoeing came back for $1.99. Maybe it's someone else. It says Blair White's real name, by the way, is Robert Ryan White.
Is that real?
Possibly. That sounds familiar from what this person was telling me, but it's been a while. ADL. Oh my goodness! Right after I made my Asperger's joke. I'm so sorry, ADL. I don't mean you. Says, I have Asperger's for what it's worth. By the way, you probably, though, have a real diagnosis. I'm talking about people who tell me, I think I have Asperger's when they're mean. So, dude, I knew that you had said you were autistic, but I didn't know. You're actually a smart, very smart person.
Yeah, he said he was diagnosed when he was young.
Nice save, Keri. But it's true. But he has the real diagnosis. Humdrum superior for $10. If it's a stranger, I'll be much more discerning than someone I've known personally for a long time. I refuse to call my friend by a feminine name because I love him and I cannot affirm a lie. That's a really great point and perspective.
Yeah.
Okay. So that gives me something because like I ran into this girl, someone that I played basketball with in high school. And I've not seen this person since she was a year ahead of me since she graduated. I saw her, I was like, oh, hi. And I said, you know, her name and, you know, not thinking she like now goes by a guy's name and has gone that route. And it's like, we're going to be at like a group function. But like, to me, like, I don't follow this person on social media. It's just, that person is who that person is to me. The person, you know, what I called them for those 4 years of playing basketball with this person, you know?
So you dead named them?
What'd you say?
So you dead named them?
What does that mean? Hey, you
use the original name, not the one they go by now?
I did. So like, but I feel like that's just that's what I'm going to call her. Like, because that's how I know her. Like, I don't know her as like this other name and identity that I was not really aware of.
Right. And did she get mad?
No, like she's like happy that we're putting normal. Yeah, we're putting together like a get together. You know?
Yeah.
I don't know this. I don't follow them, but it's just that's who that person is to me.
It's such an interesting point, Humdrum. Like, it's also making me think, Michelle, about like every person I've mentioned, I've known only since they started. I've never known them differently. Than presenting as the opposite sex. There was one person I knew when I was younger in my 20s. And when she started taking testosterone suddenly and saying, you know, I'm a man now and call me this, I couldn't. So maybe it's a similar thing. I just couldn't because I knew her and I thought this is not good for you. And I love you and I can't.
Well, like in my case, like that name is just, that's when my eyes see that person, that's what comes to my brain. Like that's the name. I've known that person since before even high school.
Well, that's like when I see girls from my high school, I still call them by their maiden
maiden name.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Every single time. Even the ones that I was at the wedding. It's like, no, that name's still stuck there for probably forever.
I do that too.
And it's funny because people will be like, you're one of the only people who still knows the maiden name. I mean, or remembers it. But it's stuck there, so.
So I've got one last one. Now this one's not even a minute long. So do you mind if we play this one? This is 30 seconds.
Go ahead.
No,
Okay.
good.
This is just Colin Wright shared this. He's an atheist. He's been on the show before. He shared this little clip and he said, this was the best example you'll ever see, the fastest example you will ever see of one of the things that woke people do often, which is that's not happening. And then immediately followed by,
Yeah,
well, it is happening, I guess, but it's a good thing.
I did see this clip. Yeah.
Can we just pause that? This one's convincing.
Convincing, yes. Well, I can't remember about the voice though. Sometimes you know with the voice.
What is transgenderism?
Okay, convincing.
What does transgenderism in public look like to you?
It's allowing men to be treated for the purposes of the law as women. It's men taking 900 sports trophies from women in recent years. And
they didn't take 900.
They took 900. There's a report just came out from the United Nations, actually. 890 trophies and medals across 600 women who were competitors, across 29 different sports and 400 competitions. That came out like yesterday.
And they deserved them.
Oh.
And they deserve them. Okay, that is the logic I hear from the pro-trans crowd. Yeah.
Thank you. They do deserve them. What is?
That's just amazing. You know.
Yep.
Speaking
Complete
of
reversal.
If you're someone that likes to have conversations with people who disagree and maybe you like debate, Peter Boghossian put a post out recently that offered a bit of advice. He does these things where he engages in dialogues with people and tries to sort of diffuse some of this cult-like way of thinking. And so he said, to diffuse this, you should start off by asking them something about the second point. So what you should say is, let's assume it's not happening, this thing, right? Let's assume, like, for example, if Michael Knowles had said, let's assume that men are not winning trophies that in women's categories. If it were happening, would that be a good thing or a bad thing? Like, try to get them on the record first, because if you get them, it's almost the way the mind works. If you get them first to say, well, yeah, of course that's not happening. And if it were happening, like, I would be against it. Then you say, okay, here it is. It's been happening.
Okay. So you're saying, like, to phrase it, do you think a man should be able to punch a woman in a boxing event?
Right. You ask that. And if they say that's not happening, say, well, let's assume it's not happening at all. I'm just saying, do you think that should be able to happen? Should we do that? Should we allow men to punch women in boxing? Would that be a bad thing if that were happening or not? And if we were to let that happen, because if you get them on the record and then you show them the data, it's harder for their mind to then completely contradict themselves because they've already stated a stance on it. And then you show them that it's happening. Whereas in this way, these trans activists really believe a lot of the cult stuff. They don't know anything they're talking about. They really don't know the data. So when he's sitting there saying, that doesn't happen, there's no men that win women's trophies, he really believes that.
Right.
And then when he's confronted with the evidence, he's like, okay, well, now I'm going to keep arguing my side. So now I've got to say, okay, I guess it is happening, but it's a good thing.
I love that Jubilee brought in the fact check, and it was the exact numbers that he stated. Because he had them memorized down every single one of the numbers. Yes. Exactly 590 medals, 600 athletes, 29 different things. So.
Yes. Yeah, he did such a good job. I think we'll wrap this up so we're not going too late. Go watch the whole thing on Jubilee. Michael Knowles debating the trans rights activists.
Take it in chunks or you'll go insane, because most of these 25-on-1 things are extremely obnoxious. They may be good for clips, but it's hard to watch an hour and a half.
Hard to watch it. I just got a couple of things. There's a prayer request I want to bring up, and then also I just thought Pirate Tomsky that does it bother you that I always jokingly call you the atheist mod. You are the atheist mod, but I don't
He
have to
said it
always
in
call you that.
he said it in the chat too. So
He said at the beginning of the show, before he even started, he said, "Any chance we can keep religion out of this Christian panel?"
he actually said that right before we went live, and I said, technically, Michael Knowles is going to keep Christianity out of this argument that we're going to watch, so we could go science only for this one,
How funny.
but we didn't.
And let's see. Joshua Jung had a good point. He said, I think it's super important to understand the DSM is literally invented by professionals who decide a baseline of normal based on their observation of society. This is true. And
Yeah.
so what that means is when society goes awry and we start to the dominant religion becomes a religion that's anti-science and that doesn't make sense and is anti-reality, then a lot of these professionals start to change and edit the DSM to fit with, in this case, woke ideology, which they have been doing when it comes to the gender dysphoria definition. They've been inserting woke into it in the past few years. They are now inserting and changing things like they changed, they put in language, they put in gender assigned at birth and things like that, as if your gender is assigned at birth. So that was a good point.
Yeah.
And then we had a prayer request from Brett. Hey, Brett, he says, can you all pray for my family? My grandmother passed away last Wednesday and the burial service is tomorrow afternoon.
Yes.
Yes.
Sorry for your loss.
Yeah.
Very sorry for your loss, Brett. Michelle, would you mind praying? Should we do it or should we do it off air? We can do it on.
It is. Yeah, we can do it on. So we've got Brett and who else? Sorry, my mind tonight.
Brett, I think that was the only prayer request. I had some other things starred, but they were just jokes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can pray.
Okay.
Dear Heavenly Father, Lord, we just thank you, God, tonight. We thank you, Lord, for the opportunity to get to come and to gather and to bring you praise. Lord, I pray, God, we pray for Brett, Lord. We just ask for your peace, God, your presence to be with him and his family. God, as they bury a loved one, we pray, Lord, that you would be with them during this time and, Lord, help them to get through. Lord, we pray, Lord, for every person out there listening. I pray that all of our hearts, God, would be open. Lord, our ears would be open, that we would be able to know the truth. For you say that that those who know the truth, that it will set them free. And Lord, I just pray, God, that in a day and age where there are so many lies, so much coming at us, I pray, Lord, that our eyes and heart and ears would all be open and able to receive what is truth in this day and in this time. And we just give you all the praise and all the honor. Amen.
Amen.
Yeah.
Thank you, Michelle. It's so nice having you on this panel.
Oh,
your prayers are good.
Dr. Pastor Michelle.
Dr. Pastor. Well, thank you guys for being here and hanging out tonight. And thank you to our panel, Brahma and Michelle. Do you guys, I know you probably have another show after this, Brahma. Do you want to tell people where they can find you?
In about 3 hours from now, I'll be on the midweek hump with the Shagsworth. And then tomorrow night, Comics Division. Friday night with Little Chad on Ascendant Art. Saturday, tomorrow, I'm actually doing a live watch-along of Team USA versus Team Canada in the Four Nations Cup for hockey. So if you want to come hang out and watch the game on your TV, but have a whole bunch of people on a panel talking about the game, it's a fun way to watch it sometimes. So that'll be on my channel tomorrow.
Thank you, Brahma. And Michelle, where can people find you?
You guys can find me at Force Fight Entertainment with my sister Natalie. We just did our reaction to, though these two movies are not Christian. We just did our reaction to Groundhog Day, and I loved it. Like, I thought it had such a touching message. Actually,
It's a great movie.
It is a great movie. That, like, even though it's not Christian, I actually think the message ties into Christianity.
Yes,
because, like, what breaks the loop is, like, he learns to not be a selfish narcissist and begins to care for others and put others ahead of himself.
Yes.
So I really appreciate that. And then let's see, Thursday we've got a reaction of Demolition Man. That's not the movie I'm talking about. Next Tuesday, Again, not Christian, but I think it's a beautiful movie, and I'm definitely crying in this reaction. KB actually sponsored it. It was Son of a Woman, and wow, that movie hit so hard.
Oh, I haven't seen that since
I love that
it came
movie.
out.
It's beautiful, beautiful film.
Al Pacino's best.
Oh, he's good in it.
You know, I just need to look at everything you're doing reactions to, so go back, get some ideas for old movies to rewatch, because you're watching a lot of good ones.
We are.
Yeah.
So go check us out at Force Flight Entertainment. And then I have my Christian podcast, which I've got to get busy doing stuff on, which is the Force of Light podcast.
Thank you so much. We will see you guys in a couple weeks. We try to do these every 2 weeks on Wednesday at 6:00 Central. Thank you guys for being here. And if you have any questions, if you're watching this later, if you're an atheist, if you're not a believer, you have any questions, there's no dumb questions. You can ask anything you want. And if you disagree, feel free to disagree and let us know what you think about things. So thank you.
Keri reads the comments. I read all the comments on this show specifically as well.
Brahma does. Yes. So let Brahma know. Any complaints, send them to Brahma.
Yeah. Like, get that satanic bull imagery off of your avatar.
Oh God, did you get that?
On the very first show I did with you, yeah.
Did I tell you again? I know we gotta go, but people call me an idolater because I like religious art, and I've got these statues back here. But I was like, look, this Jesus statue. Do you understand? It's hard to find antique religious statues and art for not very expensive. Usually it's very expensive in antique stores. If you go to antique stores, you know what I'm talking about. I found this Jesus for, I can't remember, I think it was $30 or something crazy because he doesn't have any arms. But but it makes me happy. I'm gonna put arms in there. I'm gonna get some doll arms.
Get some doll arms.
Anyway, people say the dumbest, meanest thing. Oh, you're a idolater. Okay, we're taking off, guys.
Night, everybody.
Ron says, no complaints, more Cabo. Okay, bye, guys.
See you.